Okay, everyone. Well, good afternoon. I'm Brett Quigley, President and founder of Quigley Transportation Management Solutions. First, I just want to mention that I am working remote today on this webinar, and if there's a technical problem that I lose connection, I will log back in and resume the conference where I left off. But and I apologize in advance if that happens, but hopefully we won't have any issues. So I want to thank everybody for their time. I know it's valuable in attending. If this is your first webinar with us, welcome. If you're repeat customer, thank you for coming back, and we welcome your input on other ideas for future webinars. So. This month, we're going to talk about vehicle maintenance records. One thing that I've noticed in helping clients with either DOT audits or they're upgrading their safety ratings once they obtain a conditional or unsat safety rating, is that there's kind of a general lack of knowledge as it relates to vehicle maintenance records and what's required. So I thought it'd be beneficial to present on this topic this month, and hopefully you find it valuable. Okay, we'll move on here. So first, a little bit about myself and also Quigley Transportation Management Solutions. So having over 40 years of experience where I managed 3 of the nation's 100 largest private fleets, I handpicked a consultants of folks that I'd worked with over the years. And earlier last year, we put together this company, and with really the goal in mind of helping smaller companies, although we do have some larger clients as well, but really helping smaller companies navigate the challenges of DOT compliance. So together, what we're doing is leveraging our experience, decades of experience, to assist these smaller companies to avoid fines and the risks associated with non-compliance. So as the slide says, we're in the pain relief business. So what I mean by that is that whether it be pain relative to administration of the various programs or financial pain. So whether it be having to employ additional people to manage the programs or pay fines. And we're seeing more and more of this coming from the DOT as a result of audits where they're issuing civil penalties. Of course, you also have the roadside inspection violation fines. And then also, as we've talked before, about nuclear jury awards if you get in a serious accident and you end up in trial. And also, we see more and more customers that receive a conditional rating obviously pay a lot more for insurance, but also see a significant loss in revenue, upwards of about 40%, because they simply can't get the loads from brokers that they previously were able to. So not only do we offer consulting services, but we offer a wide range of other DOT compliance and fleet management services that we can tailor to a client's needs. So whatever your needs may be, I think we have a fit for you. Okay, so this material will be available after the webinar. Mark LeGrand, which was not able to join us today, will send this out to all registrants for the webinar. And so you don't need to take any detailed notes. Also, as a result of that, I'm not going to be going over every slide in finite detail. However, if you do have a question throughout the webinar, there's a Q&A section that you can ask your question, and it's all anonymous. And I will do my best to answer the question at the end of the webinar. If I can't answer it, I will get back to you with the answer after I research it. If you think of questions after the webinar, simply drop me an email with those questions, and I'll provide you the answer once I research it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about DVIRs, the repair and PM inspection records, the PM inspection tracking methods, the roadside inspection reports, and then finally we'll open it up to the Q&A. Okay, so DVIR. So drivers, everyone should know this, drivers are required to perform a daily pre and post-trip inspection on each vehicle they operate. So one thing that they should do, and this is another area that, that I commonly see that a lot of drivers don't do, is indicate at the beginning and end of their shift at least 10 to 15 minutes of on duty, not driving, with the remark of pre-trip and post-trip at the beginning and end of their of each shift. That's about the amount of time it takes to do a thorough pre and post-trip inspection, and the auditor is going to want to take a look at that to make sure that to ensure that the driver is performing a pre and post-trip inspection. If you see a driver that comes in, goes immediately on duty, and then immediately to driving, then that's an indication they're not performing their pre-trip inspection. And same thing with post-trip. The other thing is if they identify a defect or deficiency, then they're required to complete a DVIR or driver vehicle inspection report. So here's the regulation for driver vehicle inspection reports. It's 396.11. As far as the reports, the required content of the report, there's 11 items, 11 safety items here. And I'm not going to read through all these, but the thing here is that a post-trip DVIR is not required if the driver does not identify any defects or deficiencies. That used to be the case. DOT changed that several years ago. It's that, however, a lot of carriers have continued requiring the drivers to complete a post-trip DVIR simply as a best practice to make sure the drivers are in the habit of performing the post-trip. That's kind of a documented proof that they've done so. One question I often hear is a pre-trip DVIR required? The answer to this is no, unless when they perform their pre-trip inspection, they identify a safety defect. In that case, they would complete a DVIR. They would then be required to, if it was a safety defect, to make sure that the repairs were performed before they departed on their run that day. Okay, continuing on with the DVIRs, you'll notice that it says if a driver operates more than one vehicle during the day, a report must be prepared for each vehicle operated. And then it goes on to say drivers are not required to prepare a report if no defect or deficiency is discovered by or reported to the driver. So now let's talk about the required signatures. So if a defect is identified, the DVIR, once it's completed, is going to have 3 signatures on it. So the driver who reports it must sign the report. Then from a corrective action standpoint, either the mechanic that makes the repairs, they must certify that the repairs have been made, or if, let's say the driver writes up a radio that is not functioning on their pre-trip inspection. Obviously, that's not a safety-related defect. The vehicle is able to continue operation. So in that case, a supervisor can indicate that and sign as a second box or second signature line that no repairs are required for that vehicle to safely continue operation. And then the third report, or the third signature, I'm sorry, is the next reporting driver. Now this can be in some cases the same driver, or it can be a different driver if you're on a slip seat operation. So the purpose of this is the driver is acknowledging that they have done their pre-trip inspection, they've reviewed the previous DVIR, and acknowledge that the repairs have been performed as were acknowledged or confirmed by the mechanic. So some key points here to point out is that No report is required when no deficiencies or defects are found. And then the 3 signatures required when they are found are the driver performing the inspection, the mechanic or supervisor signing off on it, and then the next reporting driver confirming that the repairs were in fact performed. All right, so I know this is an eye chart. This is an this is an example of a DVIR. The J.J. Keller. This is an example from a J.J. Keller form. They're an excellent source for forms. One thing that I would recommend is that you get a bound book of forms as opposed to loose leaf, and also get them in triplicate. Now you can get these from truck stops, like say J.J. Keller, other sources as well. But once the driver completes these, then what you want to do is set up a file by vehicle, and you'll file these in there in vehicle by vehicle in chronological order. And then the required retention period for this is 3 months. So you can purge these after the 3 months period has expired. So typically what you would want to do is by vehicle, you would group them by month. And then after you start a new month, then you would purge that month that was beyond 3 months old. Now, the other question I get a lot are electronic DVIRs acceptable? And they are. The key point here is that to really be seamless and paperless, you have to have a electronic garage management system, one that will integrate with your ELD system. And I know a lot of ELD providers promote that you can do electronic DVIRs in their systems, which is true. The problem is that unless you have a garage management system to integrate these, where the reporting driver would complete their DVIR in the ELD system, then it would electronically transfer to the garage management system, where the mechanic would certify that the repairs have been made after they're completed. And then that DVIR would then be pushed back to the ELD system by the garage management system for the next reporting driver of that vehicle to confirm that the repairs were made. And then ultimately that completed DVIR then would go back to the maintenance system for retention purposes. Otherwise, if you have, and you can do this, you can use electronic DVIRs if you don't have a garage management system, but then if defects are found, you're going to have to print those off and obtain the 3 required signatures. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the electronic DVIR at that point. Okay, repair and PM inspection records. So 396.17 addresses the periodic inspection, or commonly referred to as the annual inspection. So every commercial motor vehicle is required to have an annual inspection. And you can see from the description here, this would include the power unit, the trailers, the converter dollies, anything, any component vehicle of that makes up that commercial motor vehicle. So an example of this would be like an F-250 pickup. Ford F-250 pickup that typically has a gross vehicle weight rating of 8,800 pounds. If it's coupled to a trailer that is more than 1,200 pounds, that puts it over the 10,000 gross vehicle weight rating. So it meets the requirements of a commercial motor vehicle in interstate travel. So again, for the purpose of maintenance records, I know there's a couple different definitions for commercial motor vehicles, which adds confusion within the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. But for this purpose, for the maintenance record purpose, it's typically any vehicle that has a gross vehicle weight, a gross vehicle weight rating, a gross combination weight, or a gross combination weight rating of greater than 10,000 pounds, or hauls hazardous materials that requires placarding. That is the definition of a commercial motor vehicle. I didn't obviously address passenger vehicles in that. Mainly just, focused on property carrying vehicles at this point. Okay, so these inspections, these annual inspections, can be performed by your employees. They can, as long as they meet the inspector qualifications, and these are identified in part 396.19, or they can be performed by a commercial garage, a fleet leasing company, a truck stop. There's many different sources for the obtaining the annual inspections. This slide identifies what is required on those inspection forms. The vehicle itself should either carry a copy of the inspection form or a decal that identifies that information on it. So it has to be one or the other. So when they get pulled over, they have to be able to present and show documented proof that that vehicle has been inspected by one of those two methods. Now, certain states offer a state inspection program that meets the requirements of the federal inspection requirement. So an example of this would be Texas. Texas requires a Texas state inspection for any Texas licensed truck or trailer, and they will not accept an annual federal inspection in lieu of the state inspection. So they kind of force your hand with that in the state of Texas. They want that revenue from the Texas state inspection program. Worth mentioning here, the retention period on these is 14 months from date of inspection. So make sure that you retain those previous inspection reports for that period of time. Okay, on this, as the two bullet points state here, so documenting all repairs, preferably on a repair order that identifies activities performed and parts used, as well as the time that was spent on those repairs, is a requirement, because they want to know what work was performed, what items were inspected, all that. So same thing here is use a PM sheet to document what components are checked during each PM inspection. And I'll show you one here in a little bit that we provide our customers as a guide. That so if you're not using a PM inspection report and the mechanic may be just writing on their record of repairs just PM inspection, that is not sufficient. It has to be a checklist showing what components are checked during that PM process. The other thing I would highly recommend is that ensure that your mechanics are properly trained for the work that they perform. I had an example, or had an unfortunate opportunity to sit through a 3-week jury trial earlier in my career, and it was due to a driveline failure. And when the mechanics, they deposed each one of the mechanics that had touched that or that vehicle over a period of time. And one of the questions the attorneys asked was, describe for us the process you go through to ensure proper lubrication of the U-joints from the driveline. And every mechanic described a different process that they did. And what it indicated was that we had a lack of training on training these drivers on how to properly lubricate, in this case, a driveline. And who knows what else we failed to train them on. So just use that example as a case in point to make sure that you don't fall victim to that as well. Okay, your maintenance file should include a cover sheet that includes the information highlighted above. So that is the make, the serial number, the year of the vehicle, and also the tire size. So these are all requirements by DOT. And in addition to that, if you don't own the vehicle, you need to identify who the owner is. So if you utilize owner operators, make sure that you identify who the owner of that vehicle is on that cover sheet. You also must have a means of tracking your PMs and annual inspections to ensure that they are performed when they're due. I'm going to show you an example of one that we provide our clients. Repair orders are the recommended tool to record the work that is performed, along with the time spent and the parts used, as I mentioned earlier. If you're interested to get away from paper records, we can advise you and offer you suggestions on electronic maintenance management system. It's really a low-cost system that you can implement with your shop, and the mechanics then would be completing all the records right through this computer program. And then as the slide indicates here, the record retention is 1 year and 6 months, or 1 year, and then for 6 months after the motor vehicle leaves your control. So once you sell a vehicle, you've got to maintain that last year's maintenance record for 6 months after you sell it. All right, so here's another eye chart. It is this is the PM inspection form that I mentioned. So this is for a tractor, and I know you can't hardly read it, and I apologize for that. But we provide this to our clients at no cost, and it's in Excel. They can customize it to whatever their specific needs are. But simply stating, as I mentioned earlier, simply stating that a PM was performed is not acceptable in DOT's eyes. They want to see a checklist like this showing what was inspected during that PM inspection. Okay, so when it relates to PM inspection and tracking, as I mentioned, here's a report that we provide our clients. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet that we set up, and we customize it to that client specific parameters, whether it be mileage. In this case, it's mileage, which is indicated down here in the PM interval. And also you can do it by time, you can do it by hours, engine hours, whatever your choice is, we can set it up that way. But essentially, what you do is populate the dates, like the last date of the annual inspection. Obviously, it calculates then the next annual inspection due date, which is a year from then. It highlights, it gives you advance notice, like here's one that's due within the next 30 days. Here's one that's overdue. For this to work, you would plug in the current mileage. So you would do this like maybe update it once a week, and then you would put in the last PM mileage, and it'll tell you what the next PM due is, and if it's overdue, like in these cases. So again, we provide that. With this type of program, you should never have an annual inspection that becomes overdue. You should never see a violation for an overdue annual inspection. So again, if you don't have a program like this, and it doesn't need to be a computerized program, you just need to have a program in place that you can demonstrate to an auditor that you have a way of tracking PMs and annual inspections. Okay, so roadside inspection reports. So as the slide states here, ensure that your drivers submit all roadside inspection reports to you as soon as possible. For those vehicles with vehicle maintenance violations, ensure that the repairs are completed in the form assigned and returned to the state that issued the citation. Attach a copy of the completed form to the applicable repair documentation and place it in the vehicle maintenance file. Couple of things worth noting here is that if you think about it, these roadside inspection violations are a key audit point because they provide an auditor the obviously the information on the vehicle itself. So looking at their maintenance, at the vehicle maintenance records, they'll know to look for repairs documenting that the deficiencies identified during that roadside inspection were corrected. It also provides the auditor, from an hours of service standpoint, they know exactly where the driver was at any given date and time, so they can confirm that on the driver's logs. The other thing worth noting is that if the violation is an out of service violation, you need to ensure that you have documentation showing that the repairs were either completed before the vehicle was driven. The examples of this would be like a mobile repair invoice where they came out to the scale house and repaired that deficiency. Could be a tow bill where they towed it from that scale house to a repair facility. Or it could be a driver's statement that he or she was able to make a minor repair to correct the defect. So example of that would be, let's say a headlight's out and they had a spare headlight and they were able to replace it at the scale house and continue on. You just need a statement from the driver acknowledging that. All right, with that, we will open it up to Q&As. So I don't have any showing here. Give it a couple minutes if you have any specific questions. And again, if you think of something after the call, certainly drop me an email and we will we'll gladly answer anything that you may have. Here's our contact information that you can reach out to us later if you think of something. Okay, with that, I just want to again thank everybody for their participation and time for today's webinar. Oh, we do have a question coming in. Let me look at it here real quick. Okay, the question is, if the roadside inspection goes okay, does the truck need to have a copy as well? No. No, there's no requirement that the truck have a copy of the roadside inspection in the vehicle. Just the annual inspection or a decal documenting that the inspection was performed. Okay, the next one is you said about retention records for months, but do I have to keep this records at company for more time? No. So the retention of records that I talked about was that's what you have to retain at the company yourself to be compliant with the regulations as it relates to maintenance records. Okay. So sorry we came in late. Is this webinar going to be somewhere for us to see or rewatch? Yes, great question. The webinar will be, Mark LeGrand will send a copy of the deck, slide deck, to every registered participant. And then once we go through and review the content, we will upload this recorded presentation to our YouTube site. You can Google it at Google Quigley Transportation Management Solutions, and then you'll see YouTube, the YouTube channel, and we have all of our previous ones posted out there, so you can review those. All right, another question: if I buy a truck, should I ask for the previous year's annual inspection? I would say yes, but more than likely, when you go to title that vehicle, you're going to have it re-inspected as the owner of that vehicle anyway. So, but it would be a good idea, and it would be also a good idea to get a copy of the previous maintenance file if the seller has that. Okay, so if my trucks are registered in Georgia and our annual inspections are in Georgia, we have issues with this in Texas. Not as long as, and I don't know off the top of my head if Georgia if Georgia inspections are recognized as meeting the federal requirements, but if they are, then no. Texas would have to honor any other state inspection that meets the federal requirements. We got a couple chat here. Another question. So can you share this with us as a PDF and voice? Yes, it will be sent over, as I mentioned, to all participants. The deck will be sent to all registered participants after the webinar, and then we'll also post the recorded video or presentation to our YouTube channel, so you can Google that. Okay, another question. Do the signatures on the DVIRs could be digital as well? Yeah, it can, as I mentioned earlier, it can be digital. So through your ELD system, it can be digital. But you have to have a mechanism to capture the other two signatures, whether it be via paper or digital as well. So if you don't have a garage management system, or the other option possibly is you set the mechanic up with access to the ELD system. If the ELD system has the ability to, for the mechanic and the next reporting driver to access that previous DVIR and acknowledge repairs, then that would be acceptable. And if it has a retention capability for 3 months. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, I have some more questions here. Can you email me all previous presentations on, yes. If you would do me a favor, drop me an email and we will gladly send you those previous presentations. Again, you can also see them out on our YouTube channel, but just drop me an email and we will gladly provide that. Do you know something about parts storage and what is your respectable opinion about aftermarket parts and about using them? Well, I tell you, that's something I really don't, I can't offer much guidance on. That's not my area of expertise. I apologize for that. Let's see here. Can you please repeat where we find the Excel with the checklist for the PM? So that's something we provide our clients. So if you sign up for any of our services, we provide that. You might be able to Google it and see, just Google heavy duty PM inspection checklist and see if it's available online. Kind of an industry standard form. So I'd be surprised if it's not out there. But again, if you can't find it and you're interested in signing up for any of our services, we would gladly provide that to you. And anybody that if you haven't visited our website, I encourage you to do so. It lists most of our services that we offer. If you have any questions on specific services, certainly reach out to Mark or I, and we will be glad to provide you more detail as far as what we offer. But everything we offer is a la carte, so you can pick and choose whatever programs or services that fit your needs. So I think our least expensive program is like $10 or $15 a month, and it goes up from there depending on the complexity and amount of time that it takes. So our hours of service program is probably the most expensive because certainly that takes monitoring your ELD system is quite extensive. Any repair done on trucks after an inspection needs to be kept in the truck for at least 6 months. No. So again, that needs to be part of your vehicle maintenance file. So the company should retain those records, not in the vehicle, because if the vehicle's involved in an accident and let's say there's a fire, then all that documentation is lost. So all that documentation needs to be housed in a separate file at the company main office of the company of record. And with that cover sheet that I talked about in each of the maintenance files for each of those vehicles. Any other questions? Okay, well, with that, again, if you think of any other topics that you would like us to present on, simply drop me an email and we will tailor our presentations to your needs. Again, I want to thank you for your time and attendance today. Hope everyone has a safe and productive day and the rest of the week. So with that, I will close the webinar and have a great day. Take care.